Hello, this is John Fields again. Me and my son Oscar are here doing our second video. So today what we have is about a 1980 model Peavey LTD 400. Well, actually, I'm not sure what year model it is, so let's find out real quick. So it doesn't have a serial tag on it because somebody pulled it off. But actually, if you look right here, see that 7902. So that capacitor was made in the second week of 1979. This pot, there's a 1377741. So the pot was made in the 41st week of 1977. So from that, you could probably say, well, I know these knobs on the Peavey products went away about 1984. They quit building this model in 82, and the Nashville 400 came out. So I'd say that this is a 1979 or a 1980 model LTD 400. And it's a really clean example, and it's one of the best pedal steel amps ever made, really highly regarded. But anyways, this one has a Black Widow, and the Black Widow speaker that it has is actually what I call a first generation, the first type of Black Widow speaker that they made. And these are regarded as sounding a lot more like the old JBL D130s than the later versions of the Black Widows that they made. And so for that reason, these are really highly regarded. And this one, the customer says it's making a little bit of racket when you play through it. And he was concerned that the voice coil might be rubbing on the inside. So we're going to listen to it and see if we can figure out what may be wrong with this speaker. And since it has a replaceable field basket, you can actually disassemble this and get in there and look around and see if there's a chance that you might be able to fix it. So anyways, without further ado, let's check the amp out. Well, I know the amp works actually. I just did this modification for a friend of mine, and we replaced all the electrolytic capacitors with WEMA film capacitors and some of the other capacitors with some higher value parts. And this amplifier had actually been dropped. So I was checking it out for the sake of reliability, and it had a bent corner on it, which was right here, which we're also going to try to fix. So let's just see what this speaker sounds like when we play through it. Okay, so we'll take our handy T60, the second best test guitar in the whole entire world. The first best is a non-tremolo Peavey Horizon 2. Because it has the center pickup that you can pop in out of phase. But this is a good one too, because I keep a blade in the bridge and a plain toaster in the neck. This is a slightly lower output pickup. This is a little hotter. This has a little more low end and is a little tubbier. It's good for testing things like what we're going to hear here. So let's see what we got. We got to plug the guitar in. Alright, that's another good way to test a speaker. Actually, that's a horrible way to test a speaker. You should always turn the guitar down before you plug the cable in, or the amp down before you plug the cable in. So let's see. I'm not really hearing much of a... Turn the lows up and the highs maybe a little bit. Okay, now listen, that's my bad cable. Okay, so it sounds like there's a little metallic noise right there on the decay that you can kind of. It's not the logo. Not anything rattling on the grill. Normally you'd have something like that. You may have a logo that rattles because it's a little bit loose because of the screws, and in that case you can use foam tape with a lot of success. And then Same for these stripes, but generally they're usually pretty tight, and a lot of times they do have foam tape on them. So that rattle that I'm hearing definitely sounds like it's coming from the speaker, and it kind of sounds like it's coming from the center, but it's really hard to tell when you're just standing in front of it playing it. So we're definitely going to have to take this speaker apart. But what I'm hearing in that noise is kind of a timbre that's hard to explain. But if you had the speaker out and you were to tap on that aluminum dust cap in the center, it would have a real lively quality of kind of a kind of sound when you scratch on it with your fingernails. And the timbre that I'm hearing in that rattle, that on the attack of a large string with a lot of low end, sounds like that same kind of timbre. So what I'm kind of thinking is that maybe there's a little piece of trash or foam sitting between the cone and the back side of that dust cap, that aluminum dust cap back there. And maybe when you hit it real hard, you hear it, and you hear it rattling around in there. And I hope that's what it is, because in that case, we can fix the speaker. On the flip side, if we get in there and we see the coil, on the coil former, and we see a little burnt spot on it or a little piece poking out or something, we can say, well, the speaker may be about to blow. But from what I'm listening to, playing it at high power, it sounds like there's trash in it. So we're going to take the speaker out of the amplifier and pull it apart and test it on the bench and see what we see. Alright, so we're going to unhook this chassis and unplug, make sure it's unplugged, disconnect the speaker, and sit it aside for a little while. Okay, now this is an old output transformer that we have to move out of the way as well. So let's see, plug the speaker. Alright, so here's the black widow. I'm going to leave the speaker wire connected to it because it's okay. So I think it normally has like a 3/8 nut right there. See, these old Peavey cabinets all use what are called speaker nails, and they thread the nut straight onto the nail goes into the baffle before the covering goes on, and then there's a nut that goes on there, and it's usually a number 832. And these speakers weigh a lot, so you know, really you want to kind of end up with one nut at the top and one nut at the bottom when it's time to take it out, so that it'll kind of hold the speakers still for you, because it weighs a lot. Now also, an interesting feature of this particular cabinet is that if you look down here in the corner up close in that crack, you can see that there's like little notches. So this cabinet is made out of what's called 1x12 pine shelving, like ponderosa pine. And when they do the corners here, they joined it with like a with a I can't remember. It's not a dovetail, but it's like a finger joint machine. And so the sides have finger joints cut in them, and they go like this, and they stick together, and it makes a really strong bond when you glue it. But the thing is, the 1x12 pine is generally a far superior sounding cabinet material to plywood of just about any type, in my experience. Okay, so anyways, just a nice nugget about this particular amp. So, taking the Black Widow out, speaker nails do bite when you stick your hand in there sometimes, so you have to be kind of careful. They're really sharp. Got one at the top, one at the bottom, so I'm going to take this bottom one out. You flap into it a little bit here. And then this one. Now sometimes these cork gaskets on these older ones were put on the baffle when the paint was still a little bit wet. And when that happens, they rip apart when you pull the speaker out. So we'll see if that happens on this. But I'm thinking this was going to be a little more smooth. Yeah. Okay, beautiful speaker. Look. Okay, now this is definitely the first generation with the real cork gasket, the original cones. And now here's that sound I was telling you about. How it's got a little sound to it. The sound I heard when we were playing through it had that similar timbre, so I'm thinking maybe there's some trash stuck behind this on the inside of the speaker. Okay, so we'll set this aside for a minute. Alright, now we'll put the speaker on the bench. And let's just go ahead and grab the amp. We'll use it to grab the speaker because we have it. May end up running a signal through it to see if we can hone in on a particular problem, but for right now, let's just see what it does when it's sitting there out in the open and see if we can shake something loose. Okay, so first I'm going to take my fingers, I'm going to go in from both sides of the cone, and I'm going to move it in and out. Listen to that. Something's dragging. Sounds like the voice coil might be rubbing. But now if I pull it over a little this way, it's worse, and pull it over a little that way, it's better. So we're definitely going to take the speaker apart and see what's up. I don't need to play through it again. The speaker's rubbing. So let's take the amp back down here for a minute. Now let's see what we got. What kind of hardware were they using on these original? Oh! Well, crap. Now if you look down through that screen there, you see all that trash down inside? Watch it. That's what you're hearing. So we're going to try to save this puppy. Now what we have holding it in are Allen screws, so that's good. I have Allen wrenches, but not always adept at finding my star bits. Well, here's my star bits, but I promise you that's only because I don't need them right now. Alright, so to take it apart, first we'll pop out these 3 screws, and then we'll very carefully kind of twist it and just lift it off. So I'm thinking this is going to be a 1/8 inch screw. And it's not. It's larger than an 1/8 inch. 9/64. Now these things are highly magnetic. Everything you touch with it's going to stick to it, and you know. So you have to be real gingerly when you go to take them apart. You know, not to crush the voice coil. Take everything apart really slow. And you can see this screw is not even in there real straight. It's just kind of whopping in and out. You know, the magnet's trying to grab it in all directions. And this is what holds the magnet onto the basket assembly. Another interesting fact about these early ones is they had serial numbers on them. They were actually made like finished goods products, and they had actual serial numbers on them. And these are considered to be some of the best sounding pedal steel speakers ever made. You know, like I say, there's so few of them because so many of them are blown or have been popped over the years from use. It's always kind of refreshing to see one come in that just has some trash in it. You know, thinking maybe we can get one of these suckers back on the road. Now, if I were to make a new speaker for a pedal steel amplifier, I would want to nail this or a JBL D130. The difference in a D130 and a Black Widow, though, is power handling. A D130 can sound the way it does because the gap is so small. Let me show you the gap. It's a 75 watt speaker, whereas a Black Widow handles about 200 watts. You lift it straight off right there like I just did. And now here is the gap. On the JBL D130, that gap's going to be quite a bit smaller. But by nature of it being quite a bit smaller, the speaker can't handle as much power. So anyways, we have to clean out that gap, and we see what was in the gap is almost certainly going to be this rotten foam that used to sit behind that screen. Now that foam not being in there won't hurt anything at all. But when we're playing through this, we hear all of that foam dust that's been running in there. And when you play through that, you'll remember that the speaker wires were at the bottom of the cabinet, right? So you notice all this trash that's rubbing up in the gap is at the bottom of the coil. So what happened was, you play through the amp, the speaker would warm up, the dust from this foam, which is the same as the foam of the T-Series cases, by the way, same crap, that dust would heat up and melt and polymerize, and it's making the speaker rub a little bit. So I got to figure out, A, how I'm going to clean that stuff off of there, and B, how I'm going to get it out of that side of the gap, because there is some muck down in there and it's got to come out. The good news is it looks like we can save this speaker. So next we'll start cleaning that up. Okay, so I guess in order to clean this up, we're going to need to figure out what kind of solvent we're going to use. I thought about it a little bit, and I thought, well, acetone would probably take that off because it's some kind of a, I'm not really sure what it is, but it's some sort of you know, foam that rots in humidity. So for that reason I thought maybe it's water soluble, because if humidity eats it up then maybe water will take it off. And water is also the universal solvent, so if you can use water to clean something off that's not ferrous, that's not likely to rust, that's always the best plan. If not, since I know this is a type of a varnish on this wire right here, maybe I could just use some alcohol, you know, or of some sort. But we're going to try water first. But as an experiment, we're going to take a little piece of this foam. Oh, and also you can see where that foam got to the bottom of the voice coil in the gap, and it melted and stuck to the coil side. Now, fortunately, the coil's not open, so maybe we can just clean all that off. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of this foam that was in there that hasn't, you know, turned into mush yet, and we're going to do just a little experiment just so that we can know. This is the same foam that was in the T-Series cases, or the you know, the guitar cases from that era that rots, and it's just horrible. So we'll see what water does to it. I'll just kind of let that sit there, and then we'll see what 91% isopropyl alcohol does to it. Just put a little bit of that in there. Okay, so letting it sit there for just a minute, and you see that the water breaks it down pretty good. The isopropyl alcohol just turns it into kind of a plasticky mush. The water definitely turns it into just like the little granular form, except sitting in water. So I think we may be able to clean it up with just water. Let's take a look and see. So I'm going to just get a little paper towel here, and I'll start on the inside. So just cleaning off this aluminum is going to be a little less dicey than trying to clean off the coil, so we'll start with that. And I'll just put a little water on there and see if it kind of comes off. I'm going to be real gentle with these because it's just you know, anything you do to bend this circle here to take that out of a circular shape will make it not work. And it's probably not a great idea to be using paper towel, but we're going to be cleaning off any residue that's left over later, so I'm not really worried about it. I'm going to try to just get a little more water on this right here. There's Peanut in there trying to tell us what's up. Okay, so given what I'm having to do to, it's not really coming off very well with water. When you soak it in there, that's one thing, but when you just kind of try to put it on there, that's another. And I don't really want to fill this up with water. I don't really want to have to get after that with an X-Acto knife quite yet. So we're going to try alcohol, since we know that that won't heat the aluminum. I'll just put a pretty good amount right there and just kind of start on that. Now on the inside of this aluminum cone, we could very well try acetone, and I wouldn't have any concerns about that at all on the inside. Now on the outside, this does have a thin coat of varnish on it, so acetone would not be a good plan there. Okay, it's coming off. It's just that I can't really get a very high concentration of alcohol on it, you know, to get it to. So I'm gonna get a lot on there and just kind of lock it on. Just let it sit there for a second. Because we already know that it will eventually eat through the foam. And let's see. This is a pretty rigid structure here, so we'll let the alcohol sit there for just a second and see if it doesn't get a little softer. I'm just going to kind of sit that there for a second. Now, since I know that thing's pretty rigid, I'm just going to go after it with a knife for a second and see if I can't make a little more leeway with the thick part. There we go. I see the alcohol is breaking it down just a little bit, just enough to where I can kind of come off here like that. Now this is where I probably, if I had any sense, I'd probably just go get a regular razor scraper and do it all flat. But this is working pretty good. It's not marring up the aluminum at all. You just want to keep it at an angle, kind of like you're trying to shave, you know. You don't want to go in at a real sharp angle or anything like that. And you don't want to see any aluminum come off. You don't want to see any scratches on the aluminum as you do this. If you do, you need to get a sharper knife or, you know, something that you can control a little better. Okay, now I think maybe we just need to dab a little more alcohol on it so that it can soften up some more. Okay, I might clean that out on the next pass. I'll make a mess here. Nasty little booger right there. There we go. Let me come in here with the knife a little more. So I'm guessing that little guy, that little crusty spot that's real thick was probably rubbing, and this might have been rubbing. It's just really bizarre that there was something in there that was able to melt and cause that kind of a problem. But with a little bit of patience, maybe we can get this back up and running. And I can't wait to see some of the suggestions in the comments for how to do this the right way. I'm all ears, and if you don't agree with the way I'm doing this, then take a look at the comments and see what the experts have to say about it. There's a really sticky booger right there. Kind of soften that up a little bit more. But I will tell you that I've never done this at all to a Black Widow. I've replaced a couple of baskets, but I'm really only just learning about speakers myself. Well, I was lucky enough to work on the new Sheffield 1230 Plus that we're selling at Peavey Electronics during COVID. And so I learned about the glues and how to assemble speakers from soft parts and how the edge treatment affects the sound, and basically how to build a greenback, you know. And that was a really fun time there. There we go. Now it's coming off pretty good. That little guy right there. Around the edge is really where you'd want to be careful. It's just very important not to deform the shape of this dust cap here. And this is actually, this particular Black Widow 1501 for pedal steel speaker, not only is this aluminum thing the dust cap, but it is the coil former. So you can get more efficiency just by virtue of not having the weight of the glue and whatever you have going on there, and that's a real integral part of the way that these sound. And when other manufacturers have tried to make a speaker that does what these are known to do, this and the JBL D130, they generally fail unless they use the exact dust cap with the coil former built onto it, and you know, this thin cone that they have here. So here it's getting cleaned up pretty good. So I'll get a little bit of stuff out of here, and we'll come back in with a little more alcohol and let it soak some. And I'll go ahead and just kind of let it run over to the other side too, to kind of be hitting those, the coil side of this, where looks like there's some residue over there, but just not nearly as much. We don't really want to scrape on that side with a knife though. That's not really a good plan, because there's a thin layer of insulation that keeps the wire from ever touching the motor. Now it looks like I might be running into some stuff that had been more hot for more of a long time, so I'm going to put some alcohol on my blade here and get back after it. Now, I'm mostly interested in getting the black stuff off that has some height to it, because that's what's rubbing on the coil. Some of this other residue that's a little more stubborn, that seems like it might etch the aluminum, I'm just going to leave that there, because I know that it's shorter than the stuff that I've already scraped off. And if something was rubbing, it was the stuff that was taller, not the stuff that's shorter. So we're going to get this clean within reason. Mostly get anything that looks like it might become particulate matter when it heats up, and get that off of there. And you know, as much of the yellow stuff as we can. But I think if we get these little brown crusty spots off, we'll be in good shape. You can say, because you know for a fact that the foam is what caused this problem, so I think we're on the right track here. So now we'll just come in here. And you just want to try to keep that rag on the inside there. And just get a good, all that dust and stuff out. Try not to drop it on the spider or in the cone right here. But I got something for that here in just a minute. Okay. So that's probably fine for the inside. I'll let that dry. Now I'm going to move over here to the coil side. Now you don't want anything under your speaker basket, because if this was to sit on that, you know, it could punch a hole in this paper, and that'd be really bad, really bad. Okay, so next we need to try to clean this side up a little, but it's not as bad. Really, if you look really closely, this side here has a little buildup that you can't see the wire through, and then there's a little turd right there that it looks like we might need to break off. This glue is going to be very important not to compromise where that wire goes into that glue joint, so we just have to be super careful and just brush it in this direction with the alcohol on the rag there, because we don't want to damage the coils. So I'm gonna get a new paper towel, and I'm gonna get a real neat fold on it there, and just right there, just put some alcohol on it. And I'm just gonna keep this real localized to that area. And I see it kind of starting to come off a little bit. Now it'll be a good plan to kind of change it up every now and then, so that you're not just rubbing the dirt back on there. Now see, the wire's here, so I can kind of get my scrub on this one a little bit. I'm just cleaning up pretty good. Just want to be real careful to keep everything circular. Don't use too much force. And kind of check yourself every now and then. Now, let's see. Okay, now we're going to take a look at it again while it's still wet. And if you zoom in on here, now you see there's still some black smudges, but you can see the top edges of the round wire poking through the black smudges everywhere. So that means that all the black smudges are shorter than the wires, and therefore it should not rub in this gap. Okay, so we're pretty much done with the basket. So now that we're done with the basket, let's move on to the magnet assembly and see how clean we can get that. Alright, make sure there's nothing under it and just kind of slide it back here. Now this is the magnet. Now, when this was heating up and this was going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth in here, and it was heating up and it was making the gum all over this, it was also putting gum on the inside of this gap. We need to try to get as much of that out of there as we can. Generally, you'd want to be able to kind of stick something down there and get it, but since we know there's gum and glue in there, I'm just going to dump some alcohol in it and know that it's going to evaporate. Okay, but now we also know that this is only really occurring towards the bottom part right there where we had all that trouble. So I could, like, you know, put a piece of plastic or something in there to kind of just mess with it or loosen it up a little bit or something, but that's generally not all that you're going to have to do. You just want to make sure that it's clear. This is not really a good plan. So I'm going to try a business card instead. Let's see what happens. Get down in there. I can get a business card all the way around with no problem. So what I'm going to do is get some of that off the surface right there. See, and it will clean up eventually. And we're going to also get this off the inside here just for the sake of cosmetics, you know. So let's go on and start by doing that. Let's get the, we just don't want this stuff in there anymore. Now this foam used to be shoved up against that screen, and when the foam rotted, the in and out motion of the piston sucked the foam up into here and caused it to go into the gap. So we're just not going to put a piece of foam back in there. And this screen is pretty much adequate to keep debris out of the back of the speaker when it's mounted into the amplifier. You would literally have to shoot something through the screen for it to get in there. So it's generally better not to have stray objects inside of your speaker motor, so we're not going to put a piece of foam or anything like that back in there. We're just going to leave it clean. Okay, now that we have this, see, a magnet's not like a speaker basket. It doesn't have paper and stuff on it. You can kind of manhandle it a little bit more. Now you don't want to compromise this label though. It was a pretty label. So we're just going to kind of keep the table a little bit clean. And so do that, and let's sit this down on a little mat. Okay. So now we got to get inside that gap. See how much of that gum we can get out of there. Like I said, the first thing I would try to do is run something around there, you know, a few times. Like a business card seems to be working pretty good. I know there's some more of that gum and loose junk in there, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another, I wish I hadn't done this part. Take a paper towel, wrap a business card around it, put it right at the edge, like this. There's the side with the D right there. I'm just going to put it in that slot. Drive it around there. Look at that. That's not a bad method. Okay, so now let's just to kind of keep it clean, let's go to another part there with a clean part of the paper towel and run it through there again. Getting quite a bit of gunk out. Now, what's interesting is that most of it is coming off of this side and not this side. Which just tells you even further, it reinforces the fact that the foam fell into here, melted here, and most of the damage occurred on the inside of the gap. So this is all good stuff. The speaker looks like it may work again, you know, at some point. It's just still really hard to say. So I'll do this a little more, and I'm just going to run this through here a couple more times. There is some danger of getting pieces of paper towel down in there, and you don't want to do that. That'd be bad, potentially, and I might have just done that just now. So before we're done, we're going to take a compressed air, and we're going to blow the crap out of this thing and get as much of whatever's in there out as we can. But it's very important first to let the alcohol dry, you know. And this looks like the best method is going to be just to go in one direction. The paper towel starts to rip when you start going back and forth. So this is the ticket here. Learn something new every day. I do not prepare for these videos, by the way. We go into them blind. We have no idea what's going to happen. The speaker came into the shop, and it seemed like a really good opportunity to help out some Steelers that might have a 1501 that they think is blown that can actually be repaired. And if I actually do succeed at this repair, I'll be willing to take yours and fix it too. If you want to try to send it to me. Let's see. But I would encourage you to try to do it yourself. And that's, you know, the whole reason I'm making these videos. Okay, so now we do have some trash in there. So I'm going to just let it dry really well. Kind of stick this in there to agitate some more of whatever might be in there. It's still pretty wet. Let's see if we I totally need to get some better rags for this. Okay, so this part I'm gonna go in there one more time, but I'm gonna put the alcohol on the actual rag, only on the inside, because I know that's where most of it's coming from. My business card's about to bite the dust. Now I see that it don't really go in there more than about a ½ inch, so I have it stuck down that far in the gap. Make sure that we get enough. And we got a lot of stuff off of here. I have a feeling this will help out a lot. And all the particulate matter's gone, all the dust and things that were causing this to be able to gum up in the first place. So just by virtue of having a lot less matter in there, we should be able to at least improve the situation quite a bit. Now, when I look inside this gap, right now I see that there's some alcohol and stuff in there, so we're going to have to let it dry. We don't really have to let it dry. What we can do is we can just go ahead and put compressed air in it right now. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to get some compressed air, and it's pretty dumb to take compressed air and blow it around your bench, because then stuff goes all over the place and we just clean the speaker. So I'm going to take this over here to the door and basically just kind of see the alcohol coming out there, and some of the crap that was in there with it is coming. The magnet loves to stick to the end of this though, so that's pretty cool. So let's see if it's any more dry. Yeah, looking pretty clean. See if we can get in here. Just in the crack there, you don't see any of the stalactites and those kind of things that can go in the floor. So now that we know we've got all the big stuff out. Alright, looks pretty clean. Now I'm going to take a basket, and since I dropped some bread down in here earlier, I'm going to kind of turn this upside down. Yeah, let me take this out here. Turn this upside down and kind of give it a good. I'm going to get up in there because dust is settling in there. Alright. have that all cleaned up, we can just sit here and kind of, let's just do one more. Let's clean it one more time. Why not? Okay, I'm going to do a little bit of this because it just feels a little grungy and dust. We've been blowing around dust and stuff like that, so kind of shine. Look at that. Get you a good, nice clean dealio right there, and then all this. Give this one more good wipe. Kind of like putting a screen protector on the cell phone. Cleanliness is the way. Alright, so we're done with our chemicals now, I think. Our water and our alcohol. 91% isopropyl alcohol. A lot of times you'll hear people say you got to have denatured alcohol to do it right. That stuff's really cheap at Walmart. And denatured alcohol is like $20 a quart now, so whatever. Get the cheap stuff, it works pretty good. Now, for this last part, we want to let everything dry just one click more. We're going to roll up our pad because, let's see. Alright, now, this should be pretty dry. We're going to look at the motion of it there again. Good shape there. The magnet's nice and dry, the gap's nice and dry. One more little peek down in there, you don't see anything for good measure. Alright, now this was oriented this way. So here's the hard part. It's not hard, it's the important part of putting a basket back on a Black Widow. You gotta line these holes up and you gotta line this gap up and just try not to create any friction when you do it. So just line everything up really straight. And you gotta have command over it. When you can see the holes through the okay, I feel like I'm fixing it wrong. When you can see the holes, you can kind of start letting it down. I'm going to do it this way. Kind of turn it a little bit while you're doing it. Alright, now we're going to line these holes up with ones in there. Alright, and they never all three line up perfectly, but the ring centers it. So as long as the screws get started in there straight, and you have it as straight as you can, you'll be in pretty good shape. I don't like to put thread locker on these. It makes it really tough to see the magnets trying to grab me right there. And, there's really no need for thread locker on these. And you know, honestly, you shouldn't have to pull them apart very often. It's like a once or twice in a lifetime thing for a Black Widow. So basically just get all these started. Like I say, you got to kind of fight the magnetism a little bit when you're trying to get them in there, because it'll try to pull it one direction or the other. Okay, so then you just tighten them. You don't have to use a cross pattern because there's only 3. I like to get them snug first. As far as the torque, you know, probably 50 or 60 foot-pounds, I'm not really sure. They are tapping into zinc, so not too much more than hand tightening with an Allen wrench, you know. Just a pretty good, snug, nice, tight. Good thing about zinc is that screws don't really like to back out of it either, so this is all really good here, I think. Alright, now, speaker's reassembled. Next we have to test it. So, first things first, I just did a lot of work on it. I want to see what impedance it measures, make sure that the coil's not open, make sure I didn't do anything stupid, and destroy the speaker on accident when I was messing with it. Then we can look here and see that we measured 4 odd ohms, which means that it's a good voice coil. Alright, now we really don't want to scratch that magnet. So I'm going to put that right here. Now, the next test will be to kind of move it in and out. All the rubbing's gone. Hear how it's not scrubbing? Well, there's a little noise. But sometimes when you pull on it, if you toe it to the left or right a little bit, you'll make it sound like it's scrubbing. So you just got to be real gentle with it. Try all directions. It's not rubbing. So that's good. I'm thinking that we should play through it with the amplifier right quick, off without the cabinet. So our handy dandy output transformer and piece of black thing. Stick it back right there. 60, and then I'm gonna turn it up a little bit. Go to the neck pickup. Put it in humbucker mode. Which for humbucker mode on a T60, you turn the tone control from 10 down to 7. It goes from a single coil to a humbucker, and that's on this pickup. Uh-oh. Okay, it's making a racket because the air vent is up against the table. But as you can hear, no more tinky tinky. So we're gonna turn this off and put it back in the amp. So now we're just gonna take the speaker and put it back in the cabinet and listen to it. I still have some more work to do on the amplifier before we're done, so we're not going to reassemble everything. But the point of this is to restore a 1501-4. Okay, so the easiest way to do this is really to lay it down on its face, because he has a big old heavy thing. So anyways, I'll grab the speaker here. See what I just did? I accidentally yanked the speaker terminals out of there, so that's not good. I'm gonna hook those back up before we reinstall the speaker. Everything's fine. Okay, we're good. So now this was in such that the terminals were at the bottom. So stick it in here like this. Now you don't want to get those speaker nails in your tone, so you lift it up and very carefully locate one speaker nail through one of the holes, kind of sit it down on that, and then locate a second one right there. Once you do two of them, you know that you're going to line up. You don't have to worry about poking a hole in your speaker. And then you got to take the 3/8 nuts. These are kept nuts. They're called kept nuts because this is a regular, I think it's a 1032 nut actually, and then they call it a kept nut because this lock washer that's built onto it kept it on there. Alright, so anyways, we'll put all these back on. And the thing about the speaker nails, again, that I was saying before, these are speaker nails, and they're not actually nails, they're actually screws, and they have a normal thread on this side where the nuts go on, but they have a reverse thread on the side where they go into the wood, so that when you back them, when you tighten the nuts down, they don't back out of the front. So it's kind of an ingenious thing if you're trying to build a lot of amps really fast, but you know, a lot of times you'd have to use T-nuts or wood screws, and wood screws won't hold a speaker this heavy very well, especially in 1x12 pine. Now the baffle though is not 1x12 pine. The baffle on this is 3/8 plywood, and they generally did that for strength, and because you know, plywood's very easy to work with. But later we actually found out that it was important to go to a 3/8 inch baffle, and a 3/8 inch birch plywood or pine plywood is generally going to be your best sounding baffle material, in my personal opinion. Okay, so then we'll go back and we'll tighten these down in a cross pattern about that many foot-pounds. And we'll go across over here and do this one. Those are the hard ones to get to. Like I was saying here, we didn't put a piece of foam back in here because anything you put in there is eventually just going to trash back into the gap there. And I suppose you could put some kind of a screen material in there if you wanted to glue it in really good, but I wouldn't fool with it. It's really difficult for things to get in there when this cabinet is sitting up on its bottom. Okay, so that's pretty good. Now we're going to see. I'm going to place it back up here. Be very careful with that old ham and reverb pan. Okay. And I'm going to plug it into the amp. Alright. Now, since it's sitting on a bench, there's going to be other rattles and things that you might hear, but that time I did turn it down before I flipped the switch on, and you will notice that the speaker didn't pop. And that popping that the speaker does when you turn it on when it's up like that can be really bad for it. Okay, so back to the trusty T60 with the bad input jack. Going to the neck pickup. Big enough low note to make the speaker almost jump out of the gap. So I think we're good to go on the speaker. So anyway, that was a successful restoration of a 1975 or 76 Peavey Black Widow 1501-4 Black Widow pedal steel speaker. Leave your questions in the comments below, and please like and subscribe to the channel, and thank you for watching.